All right, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for joining us this morning for our Max Minutes on an English language learner initiative that's being held through Cobb, WorkSource, Georgia. Before we dive into our presentation, I want to thank our anchor investors in Max. We really couldn't do our programming without them. So if you see any of the organizations here mentioned, please thank them for their support, everything they're doing for workforce development in the Metro Atlanta area. It's a huge part of what we do and how we're able to continue to connect folks and do our work. So my name is Daniela Perry. I'm the vice president of our foundation for the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. I also have the privilege to serve as the secretary for our Max Board of Directors. We are really excited to have Ada Jones and Elizabeth Colon with us today to talk more about their program, and then we'll have some following remarks. But excited to have them with us and share the progress they've made, how they kind of built this from the ground up. So I'll turn it over to y'all to go ahead and share your deck and to get us started this morning. But again, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Colon, and I am the Career Services Coordinator here at Cobb Works. We'll go ahead and start sharing this presentation. Can we put it on present mode, please? All right.
One moment, please.
Okay.
Allowing me to get to it.
I think it's the slideshow at the top bar.
Yeah, I can't get to it. It's my bar is blocking it. Hang on a second. Okay. I don't know why it's not allowing me to. I'm sorry.
No, I was actually having some issues with my PowerPoint this morning too. I wonder if it's an issue.
I'm sorry, it's not allowing me to.
Okay, that's fine. We'll
do it, but I'll manually do it. I apologize.
okay.
Can't.
Let's start on our first slide. So during this presentation, we'll take you on our journey on how we developed our intentional approach to serve English language learners. In this practical overview, we hope to give you the framework to provide quality services to English language learners in your community. Next slide, please. Oh, we're in agenda. So some of the things we'll cover today are getting to know your ELL community, evaluating the ELL community's needs, finding community partners, develop a plan. We have a heartwarming success story, our ELLI update, and throughout our presentation, feel free to add any questions in the chat box and we'll get to them in the end. Next slide, please. Get to know your ELL community. Next slide. So in the fall of 2020, we participated in a presentation of the Emory study called Removing Jurisdictional Barriers to Economic Mobility in Metro Atlanta to gain awareness of our areas of underserved populations. As we analyzed the disaggregated data in high demand sectors, we identified gaps in our service delivery. Our goal was to develop the capacity of nonprofit providers to more effectively partner with and utilize WIOA and other public funds for their clients, incorporate regional economic mobility and equity metrics as part of a regional economic competitiveness strategy. The data reported covered the 4-year period from January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2019. As we go forward, we'll break down the data for you. Next slide, please. So based on 2019 American Community Survey, the blue bar, and the 2020 census data, the orange bar, we can see the change in race and ethnicity breakdown in Cobb County. In addition, you will notice that the Hispanic or Latinos have the largest footprint of potential English language learners in Cobb County. And through our data, we discovered we were only serving 1.5% of that population. We'll further explain in a bit. Next slide, please. So here's a map that shows us not only residents of our customers enrolled, but also areas of high poverty. The blue dots are current customers that we are serving. The gray areas are high poverty areas in Cobb. Notice how the higher concentration of blue dots or customers served are in these high poverty areas. Next slide, please. As we do a side-by-side comparison of our customer service delivery area and where the Hispanic Latino population reside, which is the red area on the map on the right, we learn that the Hispanic and Latino community is represented in the highest poverty areas, and yet we are only serving 1.5% of that population. Based on this data, we decided to focus on the Spanish-speaking population in Cobb County to ensure quality and inclusion of this underserved community. Next slide, please. Okay. As we're funded by the federal government, we must remember that no person shall be denied services or benefits or be excluded from participation in our programs on the basis of race, color, or national origin, which includes English language proficiency. As we go on with this presentation and we show you the things we had to do in order to implement this, we did this not only because we wanted to be good people and serve our community, but because it's the law. Next slide, please. Now that we know the makeup of our community, what now? I'll go ahead and hand it over to Ada.
Okay, thank you so much, Liz. So as we gathered this information and we went over this study, we decided that we wanted to find out exactly what those needs were in our community. We wanted to see what were the services that were being missed that we couldn't provide at that point. So we decided that we would do a data and disparities pilot. And this included focus groups. We did focus groups with stakeholders, as well as focus groups with community members. And it was quite an interesting time for us. We learned a lot about the things that people needed and the concerns that they had in our community. But even better, we found out that which this was actually a little bit surprising for us, but we found out that the stakeholders and the community members actually expressed some of the very same concerns. Something we heard over and over was a lack of trust for both establishing trust as an organization, but also the individuals that needed the services were lacking. You know, they just didn't have that trust factor there. So that was a big one. Lack of access or knowledge of the resources that were available. We certainly can attest to that. I mean, we were looking to find out who was providing these services ourselves. And of course, legal status. And legal status is always an issue, is always something that's right there in the forefront of our minds. So we, and then there was education and training, and where are those English classes, that some of the digital literacy was an issue. And of course, access to higher education and accreditation. Some folks that come over who have diplomas from their native countries, excuse me, when they get here, they need accreditation for those diplomas. And so they don't know how to go about getting those and what that process looked like. So we decided that as a result of these focus groups, we realized it wasn't just the Hispanic and Latino community, but it was a lot of other countries of origins, other English language learners that were having those same concerns. So we decided to expand our pilot from just Spanish speakers to include all English language learners. So we got together, we brainstormed, and we said, okay, what is the first thing we want to do? Let's see if we can find out how we can help in our organization, those customers. So we decided to create a flyer. And we wanted something simple, something that just kind of outlined a little bit about what we did and how we could help, because we knew that some of those other things, we were kind of like, we can't help in that area, but we can help in this area. So we put the flyer out there, and surely individuals started to contact us. And then there was a little bit of foot traffic. And then we find wow, these individuals need all sorts of services that we couldn't provide. I mean, there were things that domestic violence assistance, food and shelter. There was, undocumented individuals that us as a federal funded agency or organization could not provide for those individuals. So we said, okay, how do we help them? Because I have to say, personally, I was one of those individuals who said, I work for a federally funded organization. I cannot serve undocumented customers just as much as I would love to. So how do I serve them if they don't speak English? So I'm not understanding. I didn't understand the responsibility that was placed on us and the expectation to serve them, other than, well, I mean, I have to refer them somewhere else. But then we never really had a process in place to be able to say, what happened to them once we did that? And once we said, okay, well, you can go to the Latin American Association and learn and take an ESL class. And then once you're done with that, then come back. But that would just seem like it was just kind of leaving some things on the table that were unaddressed. So we decided that we would try to reach out to some of the local resources that we found out there and had a big ask. We just said, what if this is what we're seeing based through a study? This is what we're seeing. We would love to talk to all of you together and see what we can come up with. And they answered the call. They came through. We had a great big meeting of the minds, and we thought that it would be beneficial to create a partners council of sorts, something that we can use as a referral basis or a networking group. And so hence the English Language Learners Initiative, ELLI Partners Council, it's a mouthful, was born. And the mission was to foster and support partner relationships and to maximize resources in the community through advocacy, education, and network. But you would think, okay, so do you have a list? Did you just, find it all in one tight little spot? And no, we had to go out and find these community partners. So how did we do that? So we looked for mandated partners. And then we went into faith-based organizations. We looked for the Cobb Collaborative in our case, United Way 211, the Chamber, and even some of the partners that we reached out to, they shared some partners that they have already worked with. So you can see the benefit of being able to reach out to these individuals and growing and making this a much bigger networking group as we went along. And as a result of us getting together, here are some of the partners that are actually on our Partners Council now. And the reason why I wanted them up there is because some of those partners are specific to Cobb, but some are not. And so if anyone is interested in doing something like this in their respective areas, it's a good idea to not only reach out in your local area, but also to look at those national partnerships and get their buy-in as well. So some of the services that now we can provide as a group, as a networking group, we can now provide social services. We can now help with immigration. We can help with after-school programs and mentoring, mental health services. That's a big one. Domestic violence, and even education, those GED classes, those ESL classes. So we act as a group that says, okay, you come into our office, but we don't have the capacity or the resources to help you here. But we remember that lack of trust factor. Well, we want to make sure that you know that we work with this organization and we're going to make that connection for you so that we keep track of those individuals and we can continue to follow their progress. And then at the point where they receive the services to stabilize them or to get them into where they can receive WIOA post-secondary training and take advantage of the services that we offer, that in the meantime, we're following them. We're not just saying, hey, go there and not be able to keep track of those individuals. So this is a wonderful thing that has really panned out, as you'll see later on in the presentation. You'll see how we have really grown in being able to serve our customers over time. But if you're thinking that maybe I would be interested in implementing something like this or some version of this in your organization, this is a little bit of a formula that has worked for us. And as we mentioned at the beginning, you have got to understand how ELL individuals interact with your agency. Do you have a footprint that they can trust? Do you have services that they need? Do you communicate? Are you involved in community events and things where they know the name, your brand, so that if they're not coming to you, then you would understand why that is, right? Then you want to identify and assess your communities. And the way we did that was through our focus groups. And you need to know, do some additional research and data research using some of the sources that we will post for you at the end in one of the slides. There's that's just two areas that we looked at, two links that we can share out of many, where you can identify your community, see what your target audience will be, and then of course find out what their needs are. You want to be able to provide language assistance services, and that would be by means of either having a language line set up for your organization, so that you don't miss the opportunity to serve someone, an English language learner. You want to make sure that you're training your staff on policies and procedures. Very often, staff is unaware of what is the expectation to be in compliance with the law. And very often, they're just not sure how to serve individuals. So we want to make sure that there's that staff training. Providing notice of language assistance services. You want to make sure that is posted somewhere that you are able to provide these services. They need to be able to see these things as visible. They may not be able to ask and communicate that way to ask for these services, but if they see that you provide this language assistance service, they will be more apt to come in and receive the services that you can give them. Of course, you need to monitor, evaluate the language access policy that you create, as well as your plan and procedures. Sometimes, things like COVID changed the way we delivered services. So from time to time, based on what's going on, you may want to change or adjust your service delivery process. If something has gone stagnant, change it, update it, move it around. Always be willing to adjust and change according to the needs of our customers. So just a couple of tips on what helped us and what worked for us. You want to make sure that your organization is inviting. They have lep.gov, which is a huge help to us, have what they call I Speak cards. And those are cards that have languages of all sorts listed on the card. And basically, the customer can just point to their language when they see it. And then you can use the language line at that point based on the language that he selected or she selected in order to help that customer. In our office, what we have done is order the life-size I Speak card. So not only it serves two purposes, not only is it easier for them to identify their language as they come in the door, but it also gives us that be inviting, that posted out there, visible information that you can see that makes them feel like, oh, okay, so this is a welcoming environment. I don't have to worry. So that's when you start to build your own trust with the community that you serve. Of course, if you have a language line, you want to make sure that you're in an area that is not a high traffic area. Provide some sort of privacy to be able to provide the service to the customer that walks in out of respect and of course out of privacy. LEP.gov, I can't mention it enough, has a wealth of resources. It's got, they have flyers, they have law, they have articles, and they're just very, very good at supporting these efforts. Look around your own workplace. You may have hidden talent right there within your staff. You may have people that already speak another language. You may have people that may be willing to learn another language and be able to. I think Allison.com is a nice resource for individuals who want to have free training that I think supports language learning. So maybe they may want to, even as part of their own professional development, may want to learn another language that could help your organization. Or maybe a volunteer type of situation, maybe a work experience or an AARP employee that could come in and do senior employment for your agency that you wouldn't pay directly. It will be paid through AARP, and reorganize your areas, workstations, cubicles to be more accommodating and have it flow freely without, because this is something that there was a point for us that we really had to think about in an effort for us to really want to be accommodating. We were kind of excluding people because we wanted to put everyone in this one section so that they can receive all those services. And our EO officer was like, well, let's think about this, because you might be actually just putting everyone, an English language learner, separated from the rest, separate from the rest of the customers that walk in the door, and then the appearance may be one that you may want to stay away from. So it's things like this that you really have to think through, because this is something that is new to all of us, and it can get pretty deep. And of course, with your community partners, continue to nurture those relationships, expand your circle. I was talking about reaching out to national organizations that have a presence in your area, that have a chapter in your area. They can be very helpful as well. So how did we do? Just going to give you a little bit of reference where we started and where we are right now. So in you remember we started this in 2020, somewhere in the fall, and by 2021, not even a year later, we had a high school diploma program. Within that first high school diploma program cohort, 30% of those participants in the high school diploma program in 2021 were English language learners. Remember, we were serving 1.5%. And these are individuals who came from a country that perhaps were almost ready, who they have a high school diploma, but the accreditation wasn't there. So they were able to go through the high school diploma program and receive that accreditation. And we're able to just now have a high school diploma program, a high school diploma that they can use here in the United States. And what we have for you today, as Liz said, is really a heartwarming success story that comes from our high school diploma program. And I'm going to go ahead and play that for you now. Let me make sure that we are, I'm going to unshare and reshare because I want to make sure that the sound is attached. So bear with me for just 1 second, okay? Okay.
My name is Afion Ukbo. I'm originally from Nigeria. I came into the United States in the year 2019. I speak English and my native language Ibibio fluently, and I know a little bit of French. I came into Georgia in the year 2020 in January, and then I decided I needed something else. I needed to move forward in my career, So I decided to do a diploma, and I went to the library to get some books for GED. When I got to the library, I was given some resources, and somebody said, "Hi, you can call CopWorks." And they gave me the address and the phone number, and I was able to contact them. By the time I got here, I got to see the staff. They were able to assist me. And then I started the training. When after filling my forms, I started the training. I did my program purely online, and it was good. It gave me time to continue doing my little work. And then I was able to get a lot of assistance from the staff of CopWorks. Every time I put a call to them, they were ready to assist. They gave me all the directions, they gave me all the encouragement and all the help. And I completed my diploma last year, my high school diploma. I was very excited and very overwhelmed. I got the satisfaction. I knew that from there on, I could excel in anything I want to do. And I was able to start my program in Atlanta Tech this year, January 5th, and I'm on it, and I want to complete my nursing program in a short while, at record time, so that I can move on with my life in my career. I want to share that I love the medical field. My love for caring for people has brought me this far to want to aspire to be a nurse. If not for the bridge that CopWorks was able to assist for me to get my diploma, my program would not have been possible. So I thank them so much, and all the staff have been very cooperative. Another thing I would like to share is that for me, at my age, I'm 57 years, I became 57 in December last year. I think people should know that age is just a number. It's not a limitation. Anybody that wants to excel in life at any time can excel. Then the most important thing is that people should set their goals and their priorities right, and they can achieve anything they want to achieve in life.
So that story never gets old. It still touches us to this day. And I spoke with her last week. I just wanted to see how she was doing, and she is doing great. She's in her nursing program, and we'll be able to follow her until she finishes, and we'll be updating this presentation, hopefully with her college graduation in nursing. So we're very, very proud of her. So in addition to that, I like to go back to the presentation, because this is actually something that was just mind-blowing to us as we looked at our numbers from 2021 to 2022. In 2021, we had in our center 967 total customer registrations, but only 15% of those total registrations were ELLI participants. Fast forward to 2022, we've had 1,144 total customer registrations, but now 172 of the total registrations were ELLI participants. So this is a huge, huge increase on the amount of individuals that we have been able to touch, to serve, to bring in and refer out to our partners on our Partners Council. And we're tracking to see how they are progressing and hopefully get them back into our organization so that we're able to send them to a training program and get them through and have them as a pathway in order to reach their career goal and that job that pays and sustains the family in a way that they couldn't before. So we are just really, really excited about serving these customers and seeing their progress. So what is next for ELLI? Well, we would like to become an ESL GED provider site. So we are working to see how we could use the space that we have here as well as the computer lab that we have here. And of course, working towards becoming, well, we can actually just refer here, have instructors here and provide those ESL and GED trainings right here on site. We are applying for grants to enhance our services. So we're always looking for those individuals that have access to funding that would allow us to have unrestricted funding that we could use for customers that are not tied into the WIOA funding stream. We definitely want to organize a yearly ELL resource event where every single organization that provides resources to this community can be under one arena, one area, and have tables set up, all their services out there to educate the community of the services that we have available for them that they can take advantage of. So we want to grow our Partners Council to become the largest ELL resource networking group in the state. So we want to welcome as many individuals as possible, local and nationally as well. So we have a final thought, and it's a simple one. When we do not actively include, we actively exclude. So that's just a little food for thought, something to think about. And as I promised earlier, here are some of the links and resources that we used in order to do some of our own research to connect it to the Emory study and see how it impacted us on a local scale. Of course, it has our contact information for both myself and Liz. And that brings us over to our questions. So if anyone has any questions, we'll be happy to entertain those now.
Well, Ada and Liz, first, thank you for all that information. It was certainly so informative, and I know really encouraging to see what y'all are doing with CobbWorks and everything that y'all been able to achieve in a short time frame. We do have some questions in the chat that we'll start going through. We've got one question that says, was the 1.5% served only Spanish speakers or all English learners? And kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about why y'all decided to merge your services into all English language learners as opposed to just Spanish speakers.
Okay, so the 1.5 were English language learners as a whole. So it included all of the other languages that were there. They were much smaller. The other languages were much smaller in percentage in comparison to the Spanish speakers. However, we decided to include them because when we had our focus groups, they were serving individuals that were not part of that research that we did for the customers we served. So we found that there is another group of other organizations are serving other languages as well. So we wanted to make sure that we represented those organizations in our Partners Council as well.
And I think, in line with y'all's closing thought of making sure you're being so inclusive to everyone and really extending this opportunity to connect talent with, jobs and programs as well. We've got a couple other questions from Darlene Lynch, who's the chair of the Business and Immigration for Georgia Partnership, kind of wanting to learn a little bit more about the number of staff that work at your initiative, and then how are y'all currently getting funding? I know y'all certainly share you're looking for more, but how are y'all currently operating your program?
Okay, so the staff that we have actively working on this is just myself and Liz. We do include some of the CobbWorks staff that works in the front of the house, if you will. Those are talent development specialists because they are the ones who make the first point. They're the first point of contact in our office. And we have the youth programs manager is on our Partners Council. We have one member from each department here that joins us and is part of our Partners Council, actively creating the content for the PowerPoint presentations or facilitating the meetings and doing that. It's just Liz and I at this time. Funding wise, there is no funding, and that's the thing. We can only provide services to those customers that are under our WIOA funding umbrella. And this is why we have reached out to all of the organizations that are on our Partners Council, because they have funding to serve them. So we sort of act as a conduit to with those other partners to provide the services that we can't or don't have the capacity or the funding to help. But that's what I'm saying. We were looking for funding because we want to be able to have unrestricted funding available to provide services such as supportive services. We want to be able to do wraparound services and provide laptops and provide, pay for some of those GED courses and pay for some, but we can't do that with WIOA funding if they're undocumented or so on and so forth. So it's something that we want to be able to look into acquiring.
But gosh, I want to applaud everything that y'all are doing with leveraging funds creatively and really thinking through how can you leverage those dollars that are coming through other programs. How can you really partner and maximize everything? So the work that y'all are doing is incredible, especially with your small but mighty team. It's really wonderful. I have another question about, if there, of any other programs that are forming in DeKalb that are kind of like this, or maybe any other programs around the metro area. Fortunate to have this in Cobb County, but are y'all thinking about, maybe, I know you've shared your model of how y'all built this program, but do you know of any efforts in other communities?
I personally do not know. I know that we have been working with the Technical College System of Georgia in order to establish this as a best practice. And we have made presentations to USDOL as well. They have been interested in having something like this be kind of, established in all of our areas. So I think this is just something that we've always had. Remember, I said in the presentation that I was one of those individuals. I was one of those people that said, I know that I'm supposed to serve them, but if they don't speak English, how can they go to training? I was, my thinking was just right here. And as opposed to thinking ahead or thinking outside the box or leveraging resources, I was kind of stuck. So I think a lot of times we get caught up in saying, well, I can't do it, but I think so-and-so can, without being intentional. And so this is just a way for us to say, you know what, we are going to create these relationships so that when we refer someone, it's not a cold referral. This is I'm going to put you in touch with these individuals, and then we're going to get information from them, and we're going to communicate, and we're going to hold you and carry you through this process. And then you can come back here, and now we can serve you. So sometimes you have to stabilize the individuals. You have to help them to get to that point so where they can, then we can help. But you're helping them along the way regardless.
Yeah, well, I think you can certainly see the care that y'all are taking with your customers and your clients, making sure that they're getting to that next right step, which I think is so important when you're, navigating this really complicated regulatory thing. Do I qualify for WIOA? It's a lot of acronyms that I think a lot of us get confused. So if it's something that's brand new to you, it could certainly be so overwhelming. So the care that y'all are taking to, I think your point, being intentional about helping walk folks through this is incredible. I noticed a lot of the services that y'all listed were related to education. Are there certain ones that y'all are seeing are like most in demand, or some of those like work program services? What are y'all finding that's most in demand from the customers you're serving?
Liz, I'm gonna defer to you on that one.
So the most that's been in demand has been like CDL training, interest in construction, HVAC, manufacturing, and logistics. That's been the most in demand and requested.
I'm so glad to hear that, because those are the most in-demand industries in the state that we are seeing so many job openings for that are going unfilled. So that's incredible that all these individuals really want to move into those high-demand fields that are growing and going to provide them, great stable incomes for years to come. So that's really exciting. We've got one more question too that's come through. Do you think you'll be able to teach older undocumented students who need to learn English or are required to enroll in a school in the future, if you can't find that WIOA funding, said that they found that some Alabama high schools can work with their community to provide that GED training for English learners, older teens, instead of just enrolling them in high school. But what kind of have y'all found? And I know too, maybe that is dependent on getting some additional unrestricted funds.
Right. So working with our literacy department that we have here on site, along with our partners, our community partners, we can have them do the ESL classes in conjunction with either GED programs or the high school diploma program. So that is an option for them.
Wonderful. And I know too, I mean, y'all mentioned the 1.5%, that you were serving, and you're now, at 15%. I mean, that's an astronomical increase. Especially again, in the short time frame that y'all been doing this, it's incredible. But what factors, do y'all think played most into this ability to reach this group? I know you laid out kind of your blueprint, but are there a few that stand out as being just really important to put you over the finish line?
I can answer that. It's that trust factor. When no one knows Cobb works at first, what do you do? There's always that concern going into what they deem is a government agency, and there's that you're afraid. Are they gonna take my information? Are they gonna, what are they gonna do with it? That sort of thing. But when you are part of a network, and you go to the Latin American Association, and the Latin American Association says, hey, I work with Ada Jones and Elizabeth Colon at Cobb Works, go there, and I'm gonna send this form with you. It's a referral form, and they know you're coming. They're gonna reach out to you, and they're gonna take care of that part for you, and vice versa. That's what's creating that web of trust, because now you're attaching yourself to an established organization that has a good reputation, that they're like, okay, well, if you think they're good, then this should be okay. And so they come in, they call, they come. So and then word of mouth, because Liz was just telling me yesterday, it's like they are just coming in, they're coming in, they're coming in. So it's like once they hear that they came and they had a good experience, and that we were kind and we were willing to help, and then they're going to tell someone else, and then they're going to tell someone else, and before you know it, you have that reputation that you want to build in your community as a reputable and helpful agency.
Absolutely. I think relationships are everything. That's really what y'all develop with all of your partners. They trust you, and that trust is getting extended to customers and clients. I was curious what kind of are the biggest gaps that y'all are seeing for folks that are kind of entering your front doors and saying, hey, we need this, and this, or are there certain resources that are just really persistent you kind of see across the board? And certainly, with y'all's list of services, I'm sure you're able to address many of them, but are there still some of those gaps that exist and that you would like to better serve? And maybe that's kind of where that additional funding could help too.
We have legal status. That's always a biggie. Language barriers. That's always a biggie. And again, that language line, because not everybody here speaks Spanish, but then again, I don't speak Mandarin or I don't speak Portuguese. So someone is going to come through that door, and we're not going to have a person that's going to be able to greet them in their language. So being able to have that language line can help with those language barriers, but there's a language barrier. And then those transferable credentials that we've seen a lot of, where someone will come and have a high school diploma or even a degree in their country, but it doesn't translate. It doesn't translate here on an educational level to the same thing. So how do we bridge that gap between what your credential means in your country versus what it means in ours? So that's a little bit of a challenge there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that We have had an initiative at the Georgia Chamber called the Global Talent Initiative, really looking at this exact thing, because we found that a lot of folks do have skills and credentials in their home country. Sometimes they're, refugees too, and they have to leave in the middle of the night, and, they don't take their degree, so that's not the first thing that comes with them. And even if they do, it has to be in a sealed envelope and all of these things. And certainly as we're seeing workforce shortages across the state, we've got so much talent that wants to engage in those opportunities and provide better quality life for themselves and for their families. It just seems like a really seamless way to plug folks in and make sure that the whole, every individual is benefiting in the state too. I was curious though, I know that y'all got lots of plans for the future and are again thinking about how else, your organization can continue to operate. What are those gaps I think that y'all still see? I know you mentioned like laptops and paying for some of those GED courses. What are those big ticket things that you think some additional funding could really help support you and your clients in a more meaningful way?
A lot of what we come in contact with is transportation is a big one. Individuals not being able to get from point A to point B to even get the services that they need. That's a big one. Definitely laptops and that sort of thing, especially if they're like the Latin American Association offers English classes, ESL classes online. Right. So a lot of times if they don't have a laptop, they can't even, even take the class online. So they would need a supportive service of sorts. And that's where we come in. Sometimes is rent, sometimes is utilities, is some people have to choose between, paying a utility or going to school and trying to better themselves to just to have to justify the means to an end. So it's life needs that I think are the biggest things, the big ticket items. And then of course, those things that you need in order to be able to carry out the requirements of the training or whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly don't want anyone to have to make that choice. If you're paying for food, groceries, prescriptions, whatever it is, you need those life things. And we certainly want you to be able to pursue these opportunities as well. I have another question about how do y'all pay for the language line? How does that work?
Well, WIOA funding pays for the language line because we're a federally funded organization. So we have to have a language line. So as a result of that, that's something that's required.
Wonderful. And then another comment about how some states do offer subsidies to cover the cost of verifying credentials as an investment in building their workforce. So it could be an opportunity for Georgia to think about this as well. I wanted to see if there kind of been any surprises for y'all as you've kind of embarked on this work and started to, to do it. Have there been any kind of things that have jumped out at you in terms of like maybe a partner that was really helpful that maybe you weren't expecting, or a program that was much more popular? Kind of what have been the unexpected moments?
Well, I think that although we just became more intentional about this work, we've always been in it in some fashion. So a lot of what we've come across, has not been as, surprising. But one thing, we had a presentation the other day through at our Partners Council meeting. We have guest speakers, and we had the Latin American Association do a presentation. Their immigration attorney did a presentation on the immigration trends and what's happening now, and the pathway to citizenship was surprising to me, because it can be 25 years before you can become a U.S. citizen, even after you have received legal status in the United States. So the immigration process itself, there were other processes that she pointed out, but that process itself is very, very complicated. And it's just long and can really take a lot out of you. So we were just surprised at the amount of effort that has to go into getting those documents. And to us, I think it put it in perspective for me, when we handle customers' personal information, when we think about what they have to go through to get those credentials, it makes me think like this is gold.
Yeah.
You know, those residency cards, those things that they carry in the purse when they come in, and you ask them, "Go, let me have your information." Like it's, you know, this is gold. This is the your livelihood. This is your everything, your reason for being in this country. So you really, to me, it just created more awareness of and how meaningful it is for anyone who makes the move to come here, and how hard they have to work to get the things that they get. So it's just, to me, it just kind of opened my mind up to be kind of more in tune with the customers.
Absolutely. And I think, makes it even more important to build that trust and to, again, take that care and make sure that y'all are, doing that. I think it makes it so much more meaningful and to have that awareness. So, I know you mentioned funding as an opportunity, but are there any partners that you're kind of looking to still engage with or connect with? And then how can Max be a resource and maybe helping to connect with different individuals? What could we do as an organization to be helpful to you all?
Definitely, we want to be made aware of any organization that is wanting to help with funding. Anyone that has funding resources to contact us so that we're able to, we have a literacy program here. We write grants on, and now we've hadn't for this purpose in the past, but that's what we're moving towards, looking for grants. So if anybody is aware, information about grants and partnerships that could financially support these supportive services or wraparound services for these customers, things like that's always helpful. Also, joining or attending our Partners Council meeting, being a guest speaker, if you have information that you think will be helpful to the council to build them up, to make them stronger, because knowledge is power. So the more information we have about what resources there may be out there, or even information just for the educational purposes, we are always looking for guest speakers at our meetings. So we would love to be able to have support that way as well.
Absolutely. And I know Darlene would love to connect, so I'll make sure that we connect all of y'all. And if there's any others, please reach out to Joy or myself if y'all want to get connected with Ada and Liz. We've got just a couple of minutes, so if anyone has any last burning questions, please feel free to enter those in the chat. But Ada and Liz, just want to thank you again so much for your time this morning and sharing everything that y'all have done. And of course, thank you for your work. I think what y'all have done is incredible. I think you've encouraged a lot of us this morning to think outside the box and find ways to say yes in order to serve our communities and build a stronger workforce for our state. So just thank you for everything that you've shared with us this morning and for everything y'all do on a day-to-day basis. We're so excited. And I'm going to share my screen just real quick to finish us out. Some upcoming events with Max. We've got our Max Academy with talking about skills-based hiring practices. It's on March 29th, and then the registration will open soon. So just be on the lookout from a note from Joy about that. And we've got Max Talks regarding our call centers, and there are more details TBD. We'll also have more information about our next Max Minute session. So just be watching your inboxes and we'll get more information out to you. I know we've got so many notes in the chat, just thanking Ada and Liz for everything y'all do, and thanks for your time. Yes, we are going to have a recording of this, so be again on the lookout for Joy to send out that recording. And of course, if you've got any questions about any of our programming, Joy always knows everything, so we are incredibly grateful for her. And then, of course, if you haven't joined Max, if you're just tuning into the Max Minutes programming, please, we'd love for you to join Max and participate with all of our programming. We've got a whole host of resources. So let us know if we can share any more information about Max and why membership is so meaningful. Again, thanks to our anchor investors. They're here. We can't do our programming without them. And so we are so, so grateful. And that's all for today. So thank you for joining us. Again, appreciate Ada and Liz. Y'all are incredible and your work is incredible. So hope everyone has a great morning and a great week and a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.